Hello, everyone. I'm Rachel Stratton, curatorial postdoctoral research associate at the Yale Centre for British Art, and I am delighted to welcome Djamila Ribeiro and Keyna Eleison to our programme today to discuss the exhibition Isaac Julien, Lina Bo Bardi and Marvellous Entanglement, Isaac Julien's immersive multi-channel film installation on view until December 10th at the Yale School of Architecture Gallery. The installation offers a poetic portrait of one of the leading architects of Brazilian modernism, Lina Bo Bardi. Djamila and Keyna will also discuss Djamila's book, Lugar de Fala, or Place of Speech, newly translated into English as Where We Stand by Yale University Press, to be published in 2024. The book explores the concept that everyone has a social position in the world, a place of speech that should not be silenced. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. Please note that this program will be recorded and your camera and sound are muted and they will remain so throughout the program. We'll be using the Q&A feature located on your navigation bar to gather your questions for Djamila and Keyna, and they will be answered at the end of the program, but please feel free to submit questions at any time. If you would like closed captioning, a live transcript is available by clicking on the icon on your navigation bar. Yale University acknowledges that Indigenous people and nations, including Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Sciaticoke, Golden Hill Pawgasset, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquin-speaking people have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these people and nations and this land. So a little bit about our speakers today. Djamila Ribeiro is a Brazilian feminist philosopher and a lifetime member of the Academy of Literature of São Paulo. In 2016, she was Assistant Secretary for Human Rights in São Paulo. She is a laureate of the 2019 Prince Claus Prize, awarded by the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which supports artists and cultural practitioners in countries where culture is under pressure. In 2019, she was on the BBC's list of the 100 most inspiring and influential women. In 2024, Yale University Press will publish Where We Stand, her first book translated into English. Keyna Eleison is a curator, writer, and researcher, griot heiress and shaman, narrator, singer, ancestral chronicler, and cultural manager. From 2015 to 2017, she served as manager of the cultural centers in the municipality of Rio de Janeiro. She was curator of the 10th SciArt International Biennial in Bolivia and artistic director of the Museum of Modern Art in Rio de Janeiro. She is a columnist for Contemporary and America Latina and curated the first biennial of the Amazons in 2023 with the independent curator Vania Leal. So over to you, Keyna and Djamila.
Well, hi. My name is Keyna, and first of all, I'm very, very happy to accept this invitation. And I really want to thank and say about first of everything and say thanks for Courtney Martin, which is a wonderful person that without her, I wasn't here. And she's just a genius, intelligent. And that's why I'm here and I'm sending a lot of love. And I am this kind of person that like to send love and affection for everything that is connected with intellectual work. And I'm just starting here just to say that I'm very happy to be my first time in Yale with Djamila to talk around art, philosophy, and think through not only white way of thinking. And with me, with a lot of pleasure, Djamila.
Hi, everyone. I am very glad to be here today. And thank you so much for this invitation to be at Yale to talk with Keyna, who is a person who I admire. We live in Brazil, but we didn't have the opportunity to see each other in person, but maybe one day, I hope so. And I'm very glad to talk about this book, to talk about this concept, the speaking place, which is my first book published in Brazil in 2017, and how this concept, in my point of view, is connected with this exhibition of Isaac Julien, and how I think it's important to bring, as Keyna said, different perspectives, especially we are talking about two women from the Global South, and I think it's very important to bring our perspectives on that. So I will starting explain a little bit about speaking place. What is a speaking place? So speaking place is a dynamic concept that operates at the nexus of several disciplines, including communication studies, race and gender studies, and more. We believe that it emerges out of the traditions of feminist standpoint theory, critical race theory, and post-colonial theory. The reflections and works generated by those perspectives subsequently have been shaped within social movements, particularly virtual debate in a political tool, and as I stand against discursive authorization. We affirm that one of the aims of Black feminism is demarcating the speaking place of the speaker. Moreover, we assert that this demarcation has become necessary for understand the realities formally taken as implicit within the mainstream norm. So for us, it's important to understand how this mainstream norm historically is based on a reality of European white men, and that call themselves as universal, but do not understand that they are talking also from a speaking place. So that being said, we believe that everyone has a speaking place, every group has a speaking place. And to name the places from which we speak disrupts the logic in which only the subordinative speaks from a social location, because usually people think, wow, this, you give an example, especially here in Brazil, when sometimes people say, well, Black people, they talk about identity. They only talk about identity because they don't see themselves, white people, as an identity as well. So they think that only us Black or women, indigenous people are talking from a social location, and they are talking from a universal perspective. So to name place from which we speak disrupted the logic in which only the subordinate speaks from a social location, while those meshed in the fabric of the mainstream norm supposedly speak in universal terms. As the journalist and communications professor Rosane Borges notes, thinking about one's speaking place is an ethical posture since, and I quote, knowing the place we speak from is fundamental to thinking about hierarchies, inequality, poverty, racism, and sexism, and so on. End of the quote. Another criticism I often hear, and I think it's incorrect, is that the concept of the speaking place aims to restrict the exchange of ideas, to close down discussion or impose a viewpoint. Actually, we think that when we talking about the speaking place and we see that every group has a speaking place, actually it's quite the opposite. We are refusing discursive authorization and saying that it's important to hear different speaking places and how it's important to exchange points of view that comes from these different speaking places. The multivocal attempt to disrupt the regime of authority provokes resistance to those same voices in order to maintain this regime. There is an attempt to say, get back in your place, since the group in power believes it has no corresponding place. Its place is everywhere. But the truth is that each person speaks from a specific social, political, and historically placed side of being and understanding. With this in mind, we can discuss and reflect critically on a wide variety of themes present in society. What is fundamental is that individuals belonging to social groups privileged by social locals are able to see the hierarchies produced from this place, as well as how this place directly impacts the makeup of the places of subalternized groups. In a society like Brazil, for example, with its slavocratic heritage, Black individuals will experience racism from the hierarchical place of those who are objects of oppression, from the place of restricted opportunities that results from the system of oppression. White people will experience all this from that same oppression. Thus, much as the two groups can and should discuss these questions, they are nonetheless speaking from distinct places. We simply demand that Brazil's history of slavery be told from our perspectives and not only from those of the victors. We are pointing out the importance of breaking with the system in force, which obscures these narratives. So we want actually to be able to exchange our knowledge and to exchange different points of view, but when you come from a speaking place demarcated by oppression, we don't have the same opportunities to put our ideas on the table. So we are actually refusing this system and to aim to be able to have different points of views, different speaking places. That being said, I think it's related, we can relate this concept with the exhibition of Isaac Julien. First of all, I think when we understand that Lina Bo Bardi works in Brazil as an Italian-Brazilian woman, she was really affected by candomblé, for example. And it was very important to her to be affected by this Afro-Brazilian religion and how this exchange that Lina Bo Bardi had with candomblé were important to her work and to expand the point of view of a woman who came from a different social place, a different speaking place than Black people, Afro-Brazilian people, because candomblé is an Afro-Brazilian people. So when you see Lina Bo Bardi talking about time in the documentary, when you see Lina Bo Bardi talking about to refuse an architecture that's individual because she wanted the architecture to be collective, and how she brings very interesting thoughts about that the place, the architecture have to be collective and not only to be based on the architect. So it's very beautiful how Lina Bo Bardi, she was refusing the mainstream architecture of her time, and how she was influenced by different speaking places. And I think that is the beauty of that, to be able to share, to be able to exchange knowledge, and how it's beautiful to see the orishas, the god and goddess of the candomblé in her work, how she was affected by Pierre Verger, who wrote about candomblé from his speaking place, and actually to be able to see the result of diversity when we exchange with different speaking places. Because if a privileged person only reads people like her or him, only think about, I don't know, only watch movies that were written by people like them, usually these people, you have a point of view of the world that's only based on one type of speaking place. And in a diverse world, it's very, I think it's necessary to be able to be affected by different realities, to be able to understand how this world is diverse. And Lina Bo Bardi, she brings us so much beauty in her work when she's saying that time is not linear. So for her, time is a orisha, as in Candomblé we say that time is a orisha, time is a god. And to be able to see how Isaac Julien was impacted by Lina Bo Bardi is very beautiful, because also we can relate with his speaking place. He's a man from the global north that were interested in the work of a woman who was born in Italy but was raised in Brazil, and how they can, this kind of connection can bring us different forms to see the art of Lina Bo Bardi, the perspective of Isaac Julien on her work, how he was affected by her work and being a Black man. And I think it's very important to say that, because usually people think that Black people only can talk about races or only can talk about other Black people. So it's another way to thinking about the speaking places, because the universal discourse says that, you know, I am universal, so I can talk about everything. So a white person, she can talk about everything, and a Black person only can talk about specific issues. So it's very beautiful to see that, like Isaac Julien, he breaks with this kind of perspective, because it's speaking place is not about only Black people can talk about this, or white people cannot talk about racial issues, because the speaking place is not about what you're talking about, it's about where you talk from. I think this is the a difference that we need to explore. So of course that a white person can talk about race, but this person will talk from a different place. And of course, a Black person can be able to talk about other issues that not necessarily involve races or any kind of oppression. So I think that the work of Isaac Julien to bring the work of Lina Bo Bardi, it's a way to understand speaking place, what you are talking about. It's not a essentialist discussion. Actually, we are breaking with this kind of essentialist discussion, because Isaac Julien, as an artist, he can be interesting about everything, and how it's important to see all these beauty that this kind of connection brings to us, the perspective of a man in the global north, a Black man, about the work of a white woman in Brazil. And sometimes we can see how we find more bridges than walls, because we decided only to legitimate the mainstream norm, the mainstream discourse, we are not be able to see the beauty of exchanging. And in Candomblé, as Lina Bo Bardi was very affected by Candomblé, and I am a woman from Candomblé, and I was very touched by that. because in Candomblé, we believe in exchanging knowledge. We believe in the power of exchanging. Exu, for example, who is a god of Candomblé, he claims for reciprocity. So when you decided to refuse the mainstream discourse, we are claiming for exchanging, for reciprocity. You can read and write about the work of other people and keeping that people as subjects. These people cannot, they don't have to be just an object of your study, because you are bringing the beauty of that work, you are bringing how that work impacts our reality, how Lina Bo Bardi was important to build the MASP, our museum here in São Paulo, which is one of the most important museums here in Brazil. The way she fought, to build the Sesc Pompeia, which is a place, Sesc, it's like you have an institution here in Brazil that provides culture and different kinds of important things related to culture here in Brazil for people. It's a collective place. You have place there to work out, to have place to watch, I don't know, maybe an exhibition. And it's a very interesting place.
You can do everything there. You can eat, stay. It's a well-being place.
Oh, exactly, a well-being place. And the way she fought the one unit of Sesc here, because there are a lot of units of Sesc here in Brazil, and the way she fought Sesc Pompeia, I think there is a picture of that, yes. And the way she fought about Sesc Pompeia, it's here in São Paulo. And she wanted it to be a place with no air conditioning, because she wanted to have windows, she wanted it to have places that people could be together. And the way she thought about this construction was very interesting, because showed to us how she was concerned about the collective perspective, not as just as an individual, and she brings that to the architecture as a way to confront the mainstream norm. And I think it's very interesting to see her work from the perspective of Isaac Julien, and how people will know more about Lina Bo Bardi in the global north, maybe, and how people will be able to have contact with her architecture, the way she was thinking the world, the way she was, as a woman in a male-dominated area, being recognized by her work. And that's the beauty of exchanging. So through Isaac Julien work, more people will know more about Lina Bo Bardi's work. So the reciprocity is very important when we are talking about a speaking place, because you want to be able to work together. We want to break the hierarchy of knowledge, of speaking, of art. We want to break with this idea that to one person to talk, the other people have to be behind. We want to be in the same places, exchanging and showing how we can learn more from each other, from different perspectives, and how this is the beauty of breaking these walls. And essentially, this is a way to confront the colonial view of the world when you're thinking about speaking place, because you do not want to be the others as Black people, as women, as Indigenous people. You don't want to be the others. that one that is not white man and European or from the Western world. You want to be seen as subjects as we are. So this is an anti-colonial view of the world when you're thinking about speaking place, because it's about to see the others, not as the other, but as a subject, and how we can learn from and be affected by these people, even when these other groups will bring us uncomfortable truths. It's important to be in touch with these uncomfortable truths, because if this person, she's only in places with people like her or him, if she or he is only in places that, you know, there are privileged people, for example, they will see the other people's, Black people, Indigenous people, as the others, as the difference. And it's important to discuss about the concept of difference. Difference, usually the mainstream people will look at Black people or women and will say, oh, you are different from us. But actually, we are both different. And when you bring the concept of speaking place, we are claiming this to understand difference in this sense, that we are both different. I'm not different from you, just you are different from me. We are both different from each other's, because we are talking from different speaking places. But you can sit together and exchange and learn more from each other when you are able to see the other as a subject. And again, when Isaac Julien decided to have an exhibition on Lina Bo Bardi work, he is present this kind of perspective, this kind of exchange. Isaac Julien, he is looking up to Lina Bo Bardi's works as the way it deserves. And I think it's the beauty of this kind of exhibition, this kind of work. So I don't know if I have more time, but I think I want to listen to Keyna, but I think it's the importance of speaking places, to really understand what speaking place is. It's not a way to restrict the discourse, quite the opposite. It's a way to bring different voices, different speaking places to the table, and to show how it's important when you do that, to be able to exchange knowledge and to be able to expand our perspectives of the world.
Well, talking with you, Djamila, and as a person that is connected with this way of thinking, and as a creator, I really like to say that, think around that, because being a woman and being a Black, being a female body and a Black body, it made us think around one kind of institutionalization. We are in one institution. And then when we bring to us this book around that, this speaking place, I think is like me as a creator, and like a lot of intellectuals and we really needs to talk around what is being intellectual in a lot of places, is connect the idea that the struggle around the marginalized, because we're not marginals. We are marginalized people. Black people, women, trans people, people with disabilities have this struggle that is not around the equality. It's not concerned around the equality. It's not around the same laws, because it's about the recognizing and respect the differences. And to recognize and respect the differences need to constant equalization. And that's why I like to bring the idea of the music. And with the idea of the music, when I use the word equalize, I put in this place because it's a constant movement. We need this movement. We need this talk around that. And putting Isaac Julien connected with Lina Bo Bardi, and in a very interesting way, and for me in a very effective way, connected with Brazil, because we learn and we always talk that Lina is Italian Brazilian woman, but she's an Italian woman that lived in Brazil. If it wasn't Brazil, probably she will be Italian woman that love and are connected. But the way that not we think and not that we connect, that not is not only that how our affections work, but our intelligence works, our philosophy, our knowledge, our epistemology is connected with affection. And that's why we can talk with very, very easy way that Lina is an Italian-Brazilian person. And for me, it's very interesting how Isaac Julien connected art and architecture and in his work, because we have this very geometric forms that is very connected with the modernism. Then we need to talk around this because the modernism is like an issue very strong for a Brazilian way of doing thinking, how to build schools, institutions, and of course art and pedagogies that bring the idea that we have a romantic idea that we have one Brazilian self. And this Brazilian self is connected with indigenous people and enslaved Black people. And there's this kind of beloved mixing that made this Brazilian person with Oriental people, with European people, with Western people. And but it's one thing that is very strong that I really like to talk around modernism, that this melting pot that was like this romantic idea that Brazilian modernism have, and I really need to say that is a Brazilian modernism, that we need to understand who is the people that rode around the melting pot and who was inside of the melting pot. And the very anthropophagic way of saying who eats and who is eaten. And for me, it's very interesting how to, as a Black writer, see a Black artist bring a Brazilian perspective through one Brazilian, Italian in this context. And for me, it's very important. And is in the way I see the Isaac Julien work, it's more than only architecture and art connection. It's a proposal. It's like, I think I see as a proposal this work with Isaac Julien, because we have this very specific geometric forms. And with the movement that in architecture, Lina put, Isaac Julien put in movement. That is this picture. If you can stay a little bit on this picture, for me it's very important, because we have this place, we have this square. To watch this movie, this movement, we need to sit in the squares. We are in the screens that have very, very strong lines, but you have this movement that can be connected with time and space in the Orisha way of doing and thinking, as you were saying, Djamila, that we have not only a circle anymore, because we have circles in the exhibition, but as a kind of a spiral movement. It's a movement that is always connected with a place in a space in a very specific way that I think that can be connected with what you think, what you talk with me when I read the Speaking Place. Because for me, Speaking Place is put us in an intellectual, not only intellectual, but intellectual movement, a global movement that people sometimes need to not only ask permission, because it's not about asking permission, but understanding in which place you are to think about this movement, this anything. And
Exactly.
of course, as a white person, you have the word for you, because the normal, the idea of the universal, the idea of the beauty, the idea of the ugliness is connected with a very only line. And in a movement as that improve in your book, and of course in Isaac Julien, we can see this too. Is not about ask permission, but it's about to understand how painful one simple word can be for different people in a different movement, and how grateful can be one word or movement around from different places, people from these places. And of course it's around races, but it's again around the world, the structure, the economy, the politics. It's around how can we have a lot of artists' works that say that say to us that as a trans people, as a Black person, as a woman, I say this about that. But you never say, we almost doesn't watch white men, European men, Western white men talking that as a white man, I see like this. It's not about ask permission, but understand in which kind of place you are inside of the world. And this can be a very, very strong movement that we do, because it's not to take in places, because sometimes the whiteness alliances think that it's around to leave the places and put another people in that places. But this place was never for a Black or trans or woman. So we need a lot of talk and change to understand these alliances, to build more and different places, because sometimes we don't want these places. We just want to understand in which part of this structure we can have our well-being without understanding that we are inside of a death movement, inside of not only in the capitalism, but in the whole structure of the world. And I like to say, can we move for the first image that they have around that work, around that screen? I love that. For start again, we always have our faces. I love this. I love this PDF. Thanks a lot. Well, this kind of way that Isaac Julien bring windows to us, because sometimes I think as a proposal to open one window and see something that is in outside, give me sometimes like again this feeling that I had in COVID time, that I was inside of a place and I have one part of the world that I could see in my window. And I really love the idea that have this open window made by Isaac Julien. And I think he put the idea in us, or I read like that, that she is an Italian-Brazilian woman that discuss architecture, Brazilian, because it's very interesting, because the Brazilian art, Brazilian architecture is supposed to be very white, but for all Brazilians. So the idea of the collective that Lina brings to us is a very modernist idea. And of course, have some kind of limitation that bring in our time now, more time to bring alliances in plural and discuss a kind of solutions that we can bring better solutions now. And these solutions will change with time space. And I like to put these words together because it's around time space. Because as a person that did philosophy in university, thinking is something that is very strong for me. Words is very strong for me. And that's why I'm so connected with you and your way of thinking, Djamila. And in the same movement, I think with you and Isaac Julien, I like to bring not only the idea of the speaking place, but alliance place. I really want to bring this, and I really want to talk with you something to bring your voice to our talk now, because after your book and after everything that happens in the world and Brazil and with us, bring the idea of not only speaking place, but with is a speaking place, we bring the idea of the alliance place, because we have a lot of places that we now are starting to be in, but wasn't made for us and made us not only die, but get sick and made our around sick. So I think we, with Isaac and with you, can think around this idea of the alliance places with the plural. What do you think about?
Well, I totally agree with you. I think it's when we understand, actually, when we understand this difference, this different speaking place, we are able to build this alliance place. And I think it's necessary, very necessary, and a transnational alliance. And because again, speaking from the global south, as we are speaking, we know how difficult it is to be seen in the global north, for example. So I truly believe we needed to think about the geography as well in this alliance place, and how it's necessary actually for the world, because we are living now, as you said, we are in places that we are not years ago, but the thing is, of course, we want to be in this place, but we have to ask the question that how are you going to be in these places? As you told, it's very important to talk about mental health. It's very important to talk about these kind of aggressions that we have to deal when we are in places that people think you are not supposed to be. And that's why it's so important, this concept of alliances that you brought. Because speaking place is also an ethic. So a white person, to understand her place, yes, I come from a privileged place, but I have to stand for the other place. It's not just, I am an anti-racist, to say I am an anti-racist or to say I'm not a racist. How it's important to this white person actually to act. And I think this alliance is to act in a responsible way to transform the world, to be able to say, this is wrong. We have to change this environment. This environment is toxic. We have to change that. I don't have to be a Black person to understand that this is wrong. So I truly believe that the alliance is our way out. Totally agree with you.
I was like, I have something historical to add. I was with one artist, which is one Tupinambá artist, which is indigenous nation in Brazil, which is Glicéria Tupinambá. One artist is very important. And she was talking with us that Tupinambá, which was a big leader that named this nation, he, as a leader, wanted to leave the nation, to leave the city or village. I won't say the name of the structural collective, to be with the enemy. And he married the enemy, and to bring the idea that he will marry and have kids with the enemy. These kids wasn't the enemy anymore, but was a bridge around this idea that, and it's very interesting because sometimes the words are strong, but sometimes we don't have how to translate with the softer languages. But yes, the white people was the enemy. And to be the enemy wasn't a way only to kill, but the way how to bring it, to make it, to understand how you can bring alliances, because we are not the one humanity. We are very plural. And Tupinambá was thinking around, well, I will bring it, the idea that these people need to understand that they are the enemy. And as an enemy, how can we work together? As a completely different body, and that's why I really like to put music, and now I will add dance. As a complete different body, how can we dance together? As how can we be in this world when I am right and you are right, but we completely disagree? Because of course, when we are talking together, we always have like this, I am right and you are wrong. And they say, well, you are right, I am right, but we completely disagree. But we need to figure out how to deal with this. This is kind of alliance that sometimes interests me. Understanding not as, because again, say that the enemy is sometimes very strong, because we have connections with love and affection. And say that you love the enemy, you bring again to a very, very white, specific way of thinking in psychology and psychiatry that make us sick. It's not this way. It's a very strategic non-white, and I say non-white because I see a lot of indigenous people, a lot of Black people connected with this, and of course the idea of to bring urban quilombo in our places, and how to be connected.
Because the enemy, as you said, is also dehumanized when he thinks he's superior to us. And I think it's a very interesting point of view. And actually, I think it's also important to think about empathy, but I don't believe in empathy as to, to be in someone else's shoes. I don't believe that, because as a straight woman, I don't know what is to be afraid to present the person who I love to my family, for example. And I've never experienced that. But I think empathy for me is to understand what the other people live, to listen to that, to be able to be affected to that, and to understand that my speaking place as a straight woman affects directly the speaking place of a lesbian woman. And sometimes we forget that you are living in relationships. It's racial relations, gender relations. We are relations all the time. And usually you are thinking just about one side of this relation. And I think it's important to think in this, that we are connected. If there is someone in pain, maybe is there someone that's causing this pain. And we think that we are causing, but also we are being affected by that. And I think you forgot about that in this, I don't know, white view of the world sometimes. that we are all related, like in Candomblé. Now you have the Shire, we are dancing in circle all the time. You are all connected. The orishas, they are very different between each other, very different, but they dance together. They are completely different, but they dance together. There are some orishas that they don't like others orishas, like Ogun and Shango. You cannot put they together sometimes when you're doing some rituals, but they are going to dance in the same circle. So sometimes I think we lose this kind of perspective that we are all connected, and it's important to build empathy. And empathy as an intellectual construction, as a love construction, because if you're taught only to love people like you, if you are taught only to see as human people like you, you have to learn to love in a different way. And you have to construct that. You have to understand that it's a process that you have to build. It's not something that will appear, oh, empathy, I have to feel empathy. If you not understand the word of the other people, how can you feel sometimes empathy, or how are you going to feel that you are connected with that people? So I have to learn about transgender people. I have to learn, I have to kill the oppressor inside myself a lot of times, because I was taught to be homophobic, for example. I had to understand that that I have to ask me this kind of question. Am I going to be a person who are going to put myself in this process of changing to understand the other, or I'm going to be this person that will legitimize the pain, legitimize all these things? So you have to ask this question all the time, and to understand that we are all connected, and to build this kind of thing. We have to read about Indigenous people are writing, have to promote what Indigenous people are doing. And specifically here in Brazil, we have 305 ethnicities of Indigenous people. We're talking about different groups, different language, different cultures. There's not an indigenous group represent all the others Indigenous group. So today in my life, I am learning more about some Indigenous people, specifically Yanawa and Okikoi, and how it was very important to me to understand. And I thought that I was an activist, that I knew a lot about everything. And I was at that point, I don't know nothing. I have to learn a lot. I was in Amazon, learn about the medicine of these people, and learn about a lot of things, and how I was affected, and how I had to put myself in that position to learn about, to listen to the other people, even when they bring me uncomfortable truths. That put myself in that place while I was the person in the past that did that said some things that were offensive to other groups. And I have to be able to be honest with myself, and to kill the oppressor inside myself, to be able to build this kind of love network, intellectual network that we believe.
Yeah, and then thinking about what you say and watching Isaac Julien work, we need to kill the oppression in ourselves every time, in a different ways, in a different point of views. And sometimes we can do this sitting in a square inside of a museum, and in watching this, developing this idea. And we need sometimes time, and sometimes I think that we need to leave, because we don't need to be in all the places as we learn with white school, white pedagogy, white anthropology, white historicism, that we need to know everything and to be in every place. Sometimes as we can learn with a lot of philosophies, epistemologies, we don't need to be in all the places, and this is not a problem. We need to figure out our limits but I don't think that we need to figure out our limits as a woman or as a Black woman. We need to figure out our limits inside of this this nation, this structure, this society that put us in this place of feminized and Black body. And I don't know if I could talk around this. And for me, just it's very interesting. How can we think and talk around some that is so deeply inside of the society through art and literature? This is very important because we never leave this field. And then I really want I really like to say and repeat this. I never leave this place. We never leave this place. We are inside of the literature and art. Of course, we have something connected with arts, with architecture, music, dance, movie, visual arts, poem, poetry. So we are inside of this field, around this cultural field, that in a very specific solution are inside of a block. But we have so many squares around us that we can just understand that we can talk about everything through these lines, through this movement, through these waves. And just like to check if we have some questions, or because I can talk with Djamila forever.
You have a couple of questions. If you're up for taking a couple of questions, there are some, and I just wanted to thank you both first for having this incredibly important conversation at Yale, or in the kind of virtual space curated by Yale, which, like all space, is also not neutral. And so maybe that's something to think about. And it relates to one of the questions that we got, which was specifically about social media. It's about whether social media factors into these discussions about alliance places or speaking locations. Does social media help or hinder advancing these causes? And I wonder maybe if you could also open that up to thinking more about generally the kinds of spaces, the kinds of curated spaces, given that we have a brilliant curator in our midst here, that do foster that kind of exchange in ways that are productive.
Well,
I think that social media can help and not in the same yes and no, I think, because from one perspective, I think it's important, especially when you have a strategy to do that, to be able to make your work visible. I did that in social media a few years ago. I coordinate a book seal in Brazil, and we decided an independent book seal in which I publish Black authors, especially female authors. And as an independent initiative, it was very difficult to be in bookstores and so on. So we decided to use the social media to make our work visible. And we did that, was able to do that through social media. So you can do that. And if you have a strategy, and when you think that it's important to communicate to different people instead of waiting for the mainstream media to do that. And it was very interesting because we started using the social media, and then the mainstream media noticed us. So you have to do that. You have to hack the system in a way using social media. But in the other hand, it's very important to say how social media also give voices to hate. And here in Brazil, we are discussing that. How sometimes social media acts like a place to hate speech, especially some social media. So here in Brazil, there are some organizations from the Black movement that decided to sue to Twitter. And the argument was the financial exploitation of racism and misogyny, because these people are there in this kind of platform, and this platform are run by billionaire people that are having a lot of money through hate, and you have to talk about that. Who is behind this kind of hate speech? Who is financially supporting fake news, for example? And here in Brazil, it's a huge problem.
Yes.
The fake news, who is behind that? Financially supporting that. And you have to ask this question. And as a professor of the journalism department at the Catholic University in São Paulo, I was teaching anti-hegemonic media. And it's very important to understand that here in Brazil, there is not a democratic media. There is a monopoly. A few families control all the media in Brazil, few families. So we have family that they have, TV channels, radio, newspaper, the same family. So you need to talk about the democratization of media in Brazil as a public policy. It's very important because Brazil, I don't know if you are aware about that in Brazil, there is an evangelical church that on a TV channel. And TV channels in Brazil are public concessions. So the state are allowing church to have channels. And sometimes these TV channels are going to be very aggressive against Afro-Brazilian religion sometimes. So how can the state allow this kind of thing? So there are some questions that you have to ask. And in social media, sometimes you think that we are free to talk about everything you want, that social media is a democratic place, but we forgot that also social media are run by big companies. And how can you have this kind of discussion, especially when people sometimes are organizing themselves in groups in social media to attack people? It happened in Brazil. Some attacks that you had that happened here in Brazil, in some schools in Brazil, were organized in groups in social media. You have to understand who are these people, who are behind these people. So my answer is yes and no. In a certain way, we're able to organize ourselves, to confront the hegemonic narrative. We were there together saying this is racist, this is sexist, all together. But on the other hand, the structure is the same. And I think you have to ask the right questions about that. And to end, to find a way to disagree in a very good way. Today in social media, sometimes I am fed up of social media because you cannot disagree, that people treat you as an enemy. I have a weekly column in Brazil, so every week I have to write a piece. And sometimes people are in the internet attacking me, and I'm not talking sometimes about people that are, fascist people. Sometimes I'm talking about progressist people. Because they don't agree with me, so they have to, no, Djamila, what she said is wrong, so we are going to treat her as the enemy. And so sometimes we are fighting between each other because we disagree. And I think you have to find a non-toxic environment in social media to be able to break more walls. And sometimes you are not doing that. Even people that think they want to change the society, sometimes they act in a very aggressive way with people that disagree. So I think we have to find the way to be able to have a good conversation without wanting to destroy the other person because that person disagree have different point of views. If it's not offensive, why cannot listen to this point of views? I'm not talking about hate speech. I'm not talking about people that are racist and want to be racist in public. I'm talking sometimes about people that they just have a different point of view in a respectful way, and you have to be able to listen that without wanting to destroy the other person.
And just to continue this idea inside of the social media, the social media was like to make you understand how to build communities in very different ways. So we have, like, as Djamila said, hate communities, people that like build the idea of the hating. But inside of the way of thinking, and how can we fight, not only fight, but bring more alliances, places, I think we need to understand that maybe social media is connected with consume and commodities. And of course, something can be very offensive for some people and not offensive for another one. And I think sometimes we need to organize our rage that really exists and choose if we want to be connected with this offensive word, movement, picture, video, text. You want to be connected with this. If you want to be connected with this, you don't need to fight around that. You can be as a person like me, I see what you do in this way. We need sometimes organize our rage, because sometimes people start to fight, but what some people really want to is be connected. And sometimes, yes, some people are just like, we cannot start to be unforgettable people just because of the fighting. And I don't think this is a very intelligent way to be connected, but it's a way, strong way to be connected. I for me, I urge to people to strategic think that we can organize our rage in very intelligent way to have more spaces around and build a better idea around the commodities, because yes, as a Black people now, we are a commodity. As a Black woman, we are, yes, a commodity. I am not a trans person, but as a trans person, as Indigenous person, as a disability person, we are inside of a place of commodities, and we need to organize our rage to understand more what we want to fight, but more we want to build with ourselves and our family, our friends, because and of course, when I say something that people disagree, I don't want to bring enemies, but sometimes I really want to dance sometimes with these people. And then dancing is not only good thing, just move with this, because sometimes we dance in this dancing just like, oh, I don't like this music, but let's move. But yeah, I thinking around social media, not only think, but to answer this, I really ask for this person think around this idea of the consume, the commodities, and to organize the rage.
Thank you. And so we are over time, but there was a question that came in quite early, and I'm just going to allow you to answer it with just one person So the question is whether you have a favorite visual artist or writer who you, in your opinion, kind of helps break down these hierarchies and barriers through their practice. So if you could just think about perhaps one person each, because we're so short of time.
Terrible. Oh my gosh, this question though. One.
Several. One. Well, I'll talking about an Afro-Brazilian. I'll talk about Lélia Gonzalez. For me,
yes, Lélia Gonzalez, definitely.
Very important. And I think she's going to be translated to English soon. I hope so. because her work is amazing. The way
Yeah.
she was reflecting on the need of a transnational struggle between people in Latin America in the 80s, the way she was thinking about transnational alliance in the
Yeah.
80s. I think her work for me, it's very inspiring. Lélia Gonzalez, she was very inspiring.
Lélia is just like inspiring, not only what she wrote, but what she did. People need to study her, see her, look at her, see how her looks, and then how he could like be inside of the art field. She was one of the first of many things. Djamila, you know how hard and how difficult to be first in something. I know this. It's very good for media. It's very good for social media, but sometimes it's very hard for our body, but it's a kind of commitment that Lélia brings to us. And I want to add Beatriz Nascimento, which is another intellectual that is just like, it's a place, the person, is just two person, just two people are placed to study. No, you understanding what they want to listen, their friends, you know, like this is very, very important. And as an artist, I will add Clementina de Jesus, which ones like bring the intellectual idea that the voice is something that is philosophy. How the way she speaks, talks, and sings was just like, so please go to Clementina de Jesus. And of course have a lot of artists and just like, I don't know. So I need that kind of like 2 minutes to think around, like to bring, because this is a very hard question. You need to ask me just like 3 days ago, or maybe now we start to say, oh, this is hard.
Yes, but I think Toni Morrison is one of my favorites writer. And I think like how Toni Morrison, she was able to write about the complexity of human beings. And I think it's such a beautiful and sometimes disturbing way to describe that. That's really affected us. And I really like to read Toni Morrison's work because she was an artist of the words and to understand the human being. Like it's not just about oppressors and or good and bad. She was beyond this kind of Manichaeism sometimes. So the way she was deep into understand our humanity and how complex it is. So I really love Toni Morrison.
Yeah, no, and I love Octavia Butler, of course, because the idea of the fiction, and I will bring another Brazilian, Conceição Evaristo, because sometimes when the structure denies the truth around the documentary, you know, like our truth is not around the documentary. Our truth is around the fiction. So bringing the fiction in to made our truth completely understandable and existing. So yes, the fictions is just like, so we have a lot of artists.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, on that note of inspiring people, and let me just add one more inspiring person, because just a reminder that Where We Stand in English is going to be published by Yale University Press in 2024. So on that note, thank you so much, Keyna and Djamila, for this incredibly inspiring conversation.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be part of.
Say it, please.
No, thank you. I'm very glad to be part of. Thank you so much, Keyna. It's also wonderful to listen to you.
Yes, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be with you, Djamila, even here in Rio and you in São Paulo and you in US. And I really, really want to thank again to Courtney and send a lot of affection and for all the people that was listening to us and understanding affection as a strategic way to be inside of the war.